Hey guys, I am so super excited for this lesson today because we are dealing with absolute value. Now, this is a concept that's first introduced in sixth grade in Ohio, and it's talking about a number line. So I have a number line here for you. So we have some positives going to the right, and we have some negatives that are going to the left. Okay, so we have to understand with absolute value is it's answering the question of how many spaces am I away from zero? Okay, it's asking what am I going to find that distance? Okay, so if I'm dealing with the number 3, positive number 3, well, I am 1, 2, 3 spaces away from 0. But when I'm also with negative 3, and I'm located here on my number line, I am also 1, 2, 3 spaces away from 0. So notice I get the same answer for 2 different numbers. So today we're going to be exploring absolute value when working with equations. All right, so if you're going to follow along with our notes, you're going to go ahead and take those out and we are going to learn some stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. You're going to go ahead and write the heading, Solving Absolute Value Equations. All right, and I know my S got cut off over there because I ran out of room because I was trying to use my pretty handwriting. So we are solving absolute value equations. So the first thing we're going to write is what absolute value looks like visually, because I can't tell you the amount of times that we're working with absolute value and people are like, are those parentheses? Okay, so let's take a look. Absolute value is represented by using the 2 vertical bars around an expression. All right, so we're going to take a look at what that actually is. Okay, so those are the vertical bars. So we have straight, up, and down. They are not curved, they are exactly vertical. So when it says vertical bars, that's what it's talking about. We have 2 bars vertically, and there is typically something written in between it. It could be a letter, it could be a number. So the question that's being asked is, how many spaces is what's inside away from 0? All right, so it's asking how many spaces is X away from 0? So whatever's inside, that's what it's asking, okay? And that's what we're going to then say here. Absolute value is that number's distance away from 0, all right? And here's our key thing. It is always positive. And that's important to know because a lot of times when we work with negative numbers, we kind of see this backtrack and we're like, okay, well, if I walk backwards, I go -5 backwards. I'm walking backwards. You're still moving. You're still 5 spaces away from where you started. So it's not a matter that I walked backwards. It's a matter of I'm 5 away. So keep in mind when it's asking, your answers will always be positive, except when one thing happens. Okay, so let's take a look at here. So let's take a look at this example. All right, and I'm going to actually kind of split it this way. All right, so our example is saying, I want to know what is the absolute value of the number 4. So again, you're asking yourself, how many spaces is 4 away from 0? Well, when it's in positive land, that's pretty straightforward. The absolute value of 4 is, well, 4. I am 4 spaces away from 0. All right, now we're dealing with the concept of -4. So again, this is asking, how many spaces am I away from 0? Well, -4 on our number line. So if you don't work with negatives very well, so -4 is written right here. All right, so we are 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away from 0. So notice, regardless if the positive or negative, we get the same answer. Okay, the only time that this is not true is when I have a negative outside of my absolute value bar, okay? Because that's going to get applied last. So when you think about it, it's almost like you're going to cover up the negative and you're going to say, well, how many times or how many spaces is 4 away from 0? And we already answered that here, it's 4. And that answer of 4 then is multiplied by negative. So again, I'm 4 spaces away from 0 times the negative, which is going to create -4. Again, it's applied last. Here, how many spaces is -4 away from 0? Well, this is 4 spaces away, all right, which means then I apply that -4 to it. All right, so we need to go ahead and then write, if there is a negative outside of the bars, apply it last. So we're going to go ahead and then make that bullet point, knowing that if this is 4 times that negative, we're going to still get that -4. All right. Remember in this video, if at any point you need to pause to write, feel free. I'm going to keep moving. All right. So let's go ahead. I want you to understand with the examples that we're doing, there's 3 different versions of these examples. And I like to call them easy, medium, and hard. Now, please understand it by no means is hard actually hard. It just means you have to do a couple more steps. So easy means it's just one and done. Medium means I have to do a step, and then hard means I have to probably do 2 steps. Okay, so keep that in mind with what we're doing. All right, so this first one, we're going to call it easy. All right, easy means that it's just straightforward. X is what it is. There's nothing extra. It's just there. Okay, now there are 4 steps that we're going to be actually doing in all of these. It's the same steps every time. But each level, you have to do more of them. So for instance, step 1, the absolute value needs to be by itself. Well, in this case, it's already done, so I don't need to do step 1. All right. Step 2, I need to rewrite without, I can do that, but you're going to realize here in easy mode, I don't really need to even do step 2 or 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and do what the steps say. And you guys can kind of figure out on your own what you feel you need and don't need for this easy mode. All right, so it says, step 1, absolute value by itself. Well, good, check. Step 2, we're going to rewrite as 2 different problems without the symbol, one positive, one negative. So here's what that means. This is asking what number would I plug in here that its absolute value is 8 digits away from 0. Okay, that's what this is asking. This is saying what number that exists in our number system is 8 spaces away from 0. Okay, and I'm going to write that over here. You don't have to. So what number is 8 spaces from 0? Now, a lot of you guys already know this answer. You can draw yourself a number line. You're like, okay, how many spaces forward? How many spaces backwards? Oh, I got my answer. Yay. That's why it's easy mode. Okay, so let's actually do what it's saying. So it's saying I'm going to rewrite this in 2 different equations without the absolute value symbol. So the absolute value symbol is going to drop. So this is going to be x equals, and this is going to be x equals. And I need one with a positive answer and one with a negative because we're working on both sides of the equal sign. All right, so I need my positive 8 and I need my negative 8. And then it says to solve both, but in this case, there's nothing to solve. My answers are right there. The number 8 is 8 spaces from 0, and the number -8 is 8 spaces from 0. So I would then record my answer as x equals 8 or x equals -8. Another way that I can write this would be x equals positive or -8. And you can just stack your signs on top of each other. Okay? Okay. So the question was, what number is 8 spaces from 0? The answer is 8 and -8. All right, let's go do the next one. All right, so it's saying the absolute value of what number is 12. So again, it's asking what number is 12 spaces away from 0. All right, so we're going to splice it. We're going to say x equals and x equals. And then we're going to use the positive version. And we're going to use the negative version. Boom. And then I'm going to write my final answer. X is positive or -12. So again, in easy mode, it's just kind of that one step of asking yourself how many spaces away from 0 and what number is it? All right. So let's now take a look at this a little bit harder. All right. But it's not difficult. All right. So here's what you're going to see differently with the medium level. Notice there is something else on the side with the absolute value. That's what makes it medium level. It's added one step before I can actually solve. Okay, so this says some absolute value of a number plus 4 makes 13. So the question is, what does that sum number have to be? So we're going to walk through our steps. So again, step 1 says absolute value by itself. Well, right now, this plus 4 is in the way. So we got to get rid of him. All right, how do we get rid of plus 4? What is it? Yes, we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. So what I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. I'm going to bring down what I haven't touched, and please bring down the bars with it. This now cancels to 0. And then I'm going to solve 13 minus 4, which equals 9. So now notice I'm now in easy mode. It's asking what number in its absolute value is 9 spaces away from 0. Okay, so I can slice. We get x equals 9, and I dice x equals negative 9, and boom, I have my answer. X is plus or minus 9. So again, it's not that it's harder. I just had to do an extra step to start. Notice when I did that step, the bars did not go away. They only go away once I slice and dice. All right, so let's do another one here. We would treat this as multiplication because it's touching. So to undo multiplication, we're going to divide. So we have 4 times the quantity of the absolute value of x equals 20. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 makes 1. So we get the absolute value of x equals 5. The absolute value of x equals 5. So then again, we slice and we dice, and then x equals 5, and x equals negative 5. So we can record our answer as x equals plus or minus 5. Now remember, just like any other equation, you can easily check your answers. You take this 9, you plug it in, you say the absolute value of 9 is 9, 9 plus 4 is 13. Plug in negative 9. The absolute value of negative 9 is 9, 9 plus 4 is 13. Woo, I win! Check the answers here. Absolute value of 5 is 5, 5 times 4 is 20. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5, 5 times 4 is 20. I get my answer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and have you try both of these. All right, we have the absolute value of negative 3 equals 4. And we have the absolute value of x divided by 5 equals 2. So you're going to go ahead and try these. Okay, when you have your answers, you're going to go ahead and log them in. All right, and we're going to then see if you are correct. All right, let's see if you were right. All right, so my first step here is I should have added 3 to both sides. So we get the absolute value of x equals 7. I then slice and I dice. So x equals 7 and x equals negative 7. All right, my pen is deciding that it does not want to work. All right, here I would have had to multiply both sides by 5. I encourage you in your work to make sure you're putting that 5 in the numerator. So here we get the absolute value of x equals 10, which means we get x equals 10 and x equals negative 10. All right, so if you have any questions or comments with this, make sure you're letting me know, and I will go through your things. All right, so the last thing that we're going to look at is when we have the example of hard. So again, it's not that it's difficult. Just look at how it's set up, okay? The setup, I have something on the outside just like medium, but this time I also have something on the inside, right? Please understand, it is in this hard level when I have something on the inside that my slice and my dice are going to equal 2 different things, okay? So I am going to mark, and I'm going to get 2 different answers. Because a lot of times with these, we get in the habit, 7, negative 7, 10, negative 10, 5, negative 5. You're not going to get that here. All right, so remember, first step, we need to get that absolute value by itself. So my first step in this is I have to go ahead and I have to get rid of this 4 because he's in the way of this absolute value being by itself. All right, so to do this, I'm going to put divided by 4 because that is to multiply. I'm going to cancel these to 1. So I'm going to get the absolute value of x plus 2, Bow's absolute value, equals 6. So all I did is I did absolute value by itself. Okay. In step 2, I need to rewrite these as 2 different problems, and I'm going to drop the absolute value symbol. Okay, so just like we've been doing, all right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to rewrite these. So we're going to slice, and we get x plus 2. We're going to dice, and we get x plus 2. So again, you're repeating what's in the absolute value bars. All right? But now I need to make one equation the positive, and I need to make one equation the negative. Okay, so that's what that second step is. Especially in the hard mode, you need to make sure you're doing this step. Because again, you're going to get 2 different answers. Okay? Step 3 then, we got solve. All right, so when we solve, all right, we are solving a one-step equation. So here I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, and I'm going to actually do that because that 2 is repeated. All right, so this left one, x is going to equal whatever 6 minus 2 is, which is 4. And then here they cancel, and we get x equals, well, negative 6 minus 2 more. That's going to get me negative 8. So again, notice I have 2 different answers. So when I declare my answer then, I'm going to say that x equals 4 and x equals negative 8. Okay? And if I plug them in up here, I can check that answer. 4 plus 2 is 6. The absolute value of 6 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. If I plug in negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. Negative 6, the absolute value is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. So these numbers need to be different because I'm adding 2, and then I'm asking the absolute value of that. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do another one here. This one has a decimal. Decimal. Don't worry, a decimal is a decimal. All right, so we're just going to go with it. All right, so step 1 that we wrote up here, absolute value by itself. Well, done. Absolute value is by itself. Step 2, we need to rewrite as 2 different equations. So we're going to slice and we're going to dice. Now you are allowed to flip the order. I always write what's in the absolute value first because it makes it a little bit easier for my brain going, okay, write what's inside, write what's inside, write what's inside. And then I'm going to put equals the positive version and then equals the negative version. And again, now I'm going to solve. So here I'm going to add 2.5 to both sides. All right, so I get x equals 10.5. And then here I'm going to add 2.5 to this other side. All right, so we're going to get x equals, all right, now notice signs are different. So we take the sign of the larger number and then we subtract these. All right, so make sure we are doing the correct subtraction. If you're not able to correctly do this, please don't hesitate to use this fabulous machine. Negative 8 plus 2.5. It is not difficult to type it in there. Don't get the wrong answer because you are being silly. All right, and we get negative 5.5. So when I go ahead to declare my answer, I'm going to say x equals 10.5, x equals negative 5.5. I am going to ask that you rewrite. I don't want to read in your work. I want you to declare me an answer. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and have you do you-dos. All right, you're going to pause, and then you're going to go ahead and give me your thoughts when you're ready. All right, so let's work through these and make sure we were good to go with what we were doing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to add 6 to both sides. The absolute value of x minus 3 equals 8. We slice x minus 3 equals 8. We dice x minus 3 equals negative 8. And now I solve. I'm adding 3 to both sides. So x equals 11 and x equals negative 5. Right? Is that what you got? All right, here I am just slicing and dicing. So we get 3x plus 1 equals 13. And we get 3x plus 1 equals negative 13. All right, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So 3x equals 12, or 3x equals negative 14. All right, here I'm dividing by 3, so x equals 4. And here I'm dividing by 3, so x equals negative 14 thirds. Or you can say, well, that goes in there 4 times, leaving me, what, 2/3 left. Now you might look at that and go, ooh. But remember, I'm multiplying that answer by 3. So because we're dealing with thirds, it'll actually end up coming out as a pretty number. All right. So that was how to solve equations. We have one last component. I know this video is getting long. However, there's one last thing, and that is dealing with special cases. All right. Just like with equations, having the infinite solutions and the no solution, absolute value is the same thing. Okay. Not all absolute value equations are going to have 2 solutions. All right. If it ever comes out to being 0, if your absolute value equals 0, there's only one answer. Because there's no positive version and negative version. It's just what makes 0. The other thing is, if your absolute value ever equals a negative, there's no answer. There is no possible way to get a absolute value to be 0 or to be negative. I can't be negative spaces. Okay, so you have to understand, once you see that negative, there's automatically no solution with it. If my absolute value ever equals negative, no solution, no solution, no solution. All right, so let's go ahead and let's see this in action. All right, and then we'll kind of go with it. So first things first, we're solving just like we've been solving. This would technically be considered a hard level because I'm going to be doing 2 different things with it. All right, so first step is we need to subtract 4 from both sides, so that way we can get rid of this plus 4. All right, that creates 0. So we get the absolute value of x plus 3, close absolute value, equals 0. Now this a lot of times will freak you out, and you're like, equals 0. Okay, understand that's okay. That just means there's going to be one answer. So instead of splicing and dicing, I'm just going to write it once because there is no positive and negative version of 0. So we're going to get x plus 3 equals 0. We're going to subtract 3 from both sides, so x equals negative 3. Now, please do not be confused with up here, well, I got a negative answer. I'm allowed to have a negative x. I can't have a negative absolute value because when I plug this negative 3 in here, negative 3 plus 3 is 0, and the absolute value of 0 is 0, and 0 plus 4 makes 4. It's the only number that exists that will make the sequence true. Okay, there's only one answer. All right, the other example that we're going to look at that says 5 equals the absolute value of x plus 2, close absolute value, plus 8. Okay, so again, we get rid of what's not touching, so we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. And then we get negative 3 equals the absolute value of x plus 2. Now here's what typically happens. You guys go, okay, let's slice and let's dice, and we got negative 3 and 3. No. You need to, right in this exact moment of time, you need to know that you have to stop. Because you have to read what it is that you're solving. This is saying the absolute value of what number makes negative 3, and that doesn't exist. There is no absolute value that will make a negative. So right across, as soon as you see absolute value equals a negative, you stop. And you say that there is no solution. There is no number that I can plug in for x that will make this happen. It just doesn't exist. Okay? Because obviously the smallest number that I can create is the number 0, and 0 plus 8 is 8, and 8 will never equal 5. There is no way to shrink this 8 down because I cannot make this negative. Okay? So understand that. All right. So saying that, I know this video is long. I know it's a lot to absorb, and I know I talk fast. So if at any point you need to go back, replay, revisit, relook at, I encourage you to do so. Um, keep up the good work and keep trying hard, and we'll see how you do.